All right, good evening, everybody. Uneducated. About how the tariffs are impacting the economy, considering that nobody knows exactly what the tariffs are. Now, I've been saying this for quite some time. Got to put the fuzzy dice up. Shout out to All Nighter for the fuzzy dice. Brought them yet again to the Rebel Capitalist event, and so I want to thank them for the fuzzy dice for the Suburban. We'll give them another spin there. But we're going to talk about how these tariffs are impacting the economy, or at least the people's inflation expectations, and how those inflation expectations turn around and impact the economy. Because I've been saying it for quite some time. What tariffs, right? We don't know exactly what it is that's going to be impacting the trade, the global supply chains, the people's, distribution networks, how it is that they manufacture, where they manufacture. We have no idea on what it is that those people are going to do until we understand the full impacts of the tariffs, or at least the understanding what those tariffs are going to mean, right? What they are going to be like truly meaning to those people. If you were going to build a factory, I mean, the decision to build a factory and the time it comes into fruition is a very long time. Like, it's not going to happen inside of a few weeks or months or maybe even years. It will take decades for it to really occur in a way that is going to be something that is at least, substantial, something that is going to be impactful, something that is going to be profound and changing lives. If you just bring back a couple of factories, that's not going to do it. You got to bring them back in a profound way. Let me just put this little sunscreen thing up there. So when we the economy right now, especially when it comes to the silly internets. All right. So I turned the Wi-Fi off. Hopefully we're going to do a little better here now. All right. So let's talk about what these tariffs are really going to mean for the economy when you consider, oops. Get that out of the way. Okay, everything's cool. I know what I'm doing. This is Uneducated Economist style. Please stick with me. All right. So what are these tariffs really going to mean for the economy when they're not really impacting the economy in a way that people would expect them to, considering that they are supposed to bring back manufacturing, they're supposed to do like all the returning of good American jobs and all these like ideas of like a return to Renaissance when it comes to like the Industrial Revolution, kind of in higher standard of livings. I don't know exactly what it is that people want to call it, but that's essentially how people are believing when it comes to the tariffs implementation, right? But now when you see it backing away, when you see that there's exemptions, when you see that there's workarounds, when you see that there is all kinds of ways that you can avoid the tariffs, and then you see on top of it like all the like major impacts that would be from like this profound tariff all the way to now we're going to postpone it and it's going to be much smaller. This psychological impact on the economy is far more than what the tariffs are actually going to do. And so I know it sounds confusing, but when you think about like even Donald Trump and the idea that what was it, this taco thing, Trump always chickens out. He never intended on inflicting them in the first place. That was never the goal or the plan. Now, when you think about it in the fashion that if you have this belief that it will happen, which there was many people in debates and all kinds of stuff about how these tariffs are going to, what these tariffs are going to do, all that stuff, right? But then we look at what actually has taken place and there's almost nothing. They're always postponed, they're pushed back, there's very little. But the psychological impact is quite profound. So now what we see is an elevated inflation expectation that comes from it, but we don't really actually see the inflation in the essence of the Federal Reserve looking for higher inflation or saying that the inflation is elevated. You look at the Federal Reserve and they're saying it's modestly above 2%. Now, this is very interesting to think about in the sense that if the inflation is too high, right, and the tariffs are pushing elevated inflation expectations, there's no reason in the world that the Fed would want to lower rates. They need to combat the inflation that's going to come, or at least the expectation of it. So when you think about the expectation of inflation that is elevated, and then you start incorporating how that neutral interest rate will begin to rise on this elevated inflation expectation, the more it gets pushed, the tariffs, the idea of, prices going up forever, the supply chains breaking down, you keep pushing this idea. And what you are going to do is you are going to create an environment in which that the moment that you back out, everybody starts feeling so much better about things. And at the same time, you have elevated that neutral interest rate ever closer to the Fed funds rate, making the economy less restricted. This is how the game gets played out. We can complicate it with all kinds of political scenarios. And it's true, there's plenty to throw around. Even the idea of what it is that Donald Trump is doing is a political game that is being played. But on top of it, think about how it is that the Federal Reserve is sitting in a position in which that they do not move, but the economy becomes less restricted. People say, why don't they lower rates? Well, you don't have to lower rates if you can get the neutral interest rate to rise. It would be the same thing. If the neutral interest rate was falling, the Federal Reserve could follow the neutral interest rate downward. If they kept in lockstep with it, the economy would never become accommodating, no matter how much they lowered rates, if the neutral interest rate was falling at the same time. So understanding this particular point, I keep bringing it up because I think that this is probably the most important thing to understand right now about the economy, because nobody is looking at it. Nobody realizes that there is this hidden interest rate, this ghost in the machine, this ability to understand if the economy is going to be more restrictive or accommodating based on the elevated inflation expectation. If there is more expectation, if there's more worry about it, if there's more uncertainty, if there is more of this sort of behavior and idea of what's taking place out there, then what you will find is the economy becoming less restricted based on the idea of the neutral interest rate rising. This is the game that they're playing. It's a psychological game. They have to be credible with it. The tariffs have to be credible. The idea of the Fed moving has to be credible. All of it has to be credible. If it doesn't work, they will do it. Point is, that they don't. They don't need to. Because every time they come out and put the fear, uncertainty, and doubt into people, it starts pushing that expectation ever higher. See, people wonder, is it's like, well, what am I supposed to do about my home loan? Am I going to get a better interest rate on my home loan? Am I going to get, what about my stock picks? Am I going to be doing better in my stock picks and stuff in this nature? This is how people want to feel and understand about the information. They want it to be more systematic. They don't want it to be off of a psychological game. They don't want to think about it in this fashion. They don't want to think about the fact that the Federal Reserve can use specific sentences in order to alter the market's belief in what it is that's taking place out there in order to adjust the asset prices. They know how to do this. The Fed does. This is their own words. I mean, I have gone over it time and time and time again on my this channel, showing evidence of how it is that they do this, how it is that they admit that they are going to do this. The more I dive into this stuff, the more I research it, the more I look for it, the more I realize that it's really coming down to this particular thing. This one little piece of almost invisible information that really nobody talks about, hardly anybody discusses, that even internalizes the idea that if the Federal Reserve was to lower rates, the very next question somebody should say is, where do you think the neutral interest rate is? If somebody says the Fed should be lowering rates, the very next question that you should have is, where do you believe the neutral interest rate is? If the person who said that the Fed should lower rates cannot answer you that question, then they should not be saying it in the first place. They should not be telling you that the Fed should be lowering rates. What you can say is the Fed is doing a job of sitting still while letting the elevated inflation expectation push the neutral interest rate ever higher. While they sit still, their monetary policy becomes less restrictive. If you want to lower rates, why don't you just look at it that way and believe, for the fact of the matter, that it's a less restricted economy based on an elevated inflation expectation and an elevated neutral interest rate. See, this is really how the Federal Reserve is looking at it. And it's amazing to think that so many people understand everything that I have talked about, but yet never really thought about it in this fashion. Okay? This is probably one of the most esoteric way of looking at the economy right now, but this is how the Federal Reserve is looking at it. You think about it, this is them getting their ammo back. If they were able to position themselves in a way that the neutral interest rate finds them and they are sitting neutral, and it begins to rise even more on elevated inflation expectation that gets away from them, then they can end up with too much ammo and be in a position in which the Federal Reserve has now found themselves sitting still and being accommodating. They haven't moved. And if the neutral interest rate continues to rise after that, and this is a huge what if, but if there's hyperinflation or complete supply chain breakdown or complete disruption of the entire economy, then you can bet that there's probably going to be more inflation going into the future as prices rise, and that elevated inflation expectation could push the neutral interest rate well above the Fed funds rate, forcing the Federal Reserve to raise rates. That would be the only reason they would need to. I think that is probably not going to happen. What I feel is that the elevated inflation expectations that we are experiencing right now would be alleviated quite quickly if the news was to turn it off. I think most of it is propagandized information to begin with, and most people wouldn't even understand what was going on if it wasn't for the fact that the news is forcing this belief upon them. If it was a truly to understand how it is that things are going in the economy, then the news would also be explaining how it is that elevated inflation expectation pushes the neutral interest rate ever higher, making the economy less restricted, and then explain that's why it is that we have such a resilient economy. Right? I can explain it over and over again, and I really hope that people are listening. I really hope that people are internalizing this information, and I really, really, really hope that they go and check it out for themselves. I hope that they are going and doing the research for themselves. I can no longer see it any other way. People are telling me that it's political minded and all this other stuff, and I'm thinking in my head, man, if they could only go back 25 years and start reading through these speeches so that they can internalize the monetary policy in the way that we have here on the Uneducated Economist, they would be able to see this in a way that is unlike anybody else. You can fact check me on everything that I say. I got so much content where I have used the Federal Reserve's own words against them in order for them to achieve their monetary policy. You had to have an elevated inflation expectation. They pushed it upon us and we got it, and they won their battle. Yeah. It's amazing to see it and to know exactly how it is that how it is that it went down. Like, it blows me away how nobody else saw it. No, like, even though it's like, here it is, I'm telling people they're using credible threats in order to achieve their monetary policy because the adjustment of interest rates no longer works. And so once I saw it that way, I stopped looking at the interest rate adjustments and started listening to their words, because their words became more impactful than their actions. And we can tell this is taking place right now. And again, like, how awesome of a monetary policy is it that you really don't have to adjust rates? All you have to do is convince people of a particular scenario into the future. Your monetary policy can stand still because the monetary policy is more about adjusting perception so that you can adjust the neutral interest rate, which is not a visible it's not a visible interest rate. It's not one that you can observe in real time. So how hidden is the monetary policy now? See, people thought it was hidden before through Fed speak and just really complicated systems of banking and financial. Now it's down to perception change to adjust the neutral interest rate, whether it goes closer or further away from a Federal Reserve that stands still. That's the monetary policy. Not the adjustment of the Fed funds rate, but the adjustment of the perception of what people will do with the Fed funds, what the Fed will do with the Fed funds rate, which then gives an inflation expectation that is either elevated or not, and that adjusts the neutral interest rate. That's the monetary policy. That's it. Right? And it's difficult. It's difficult to see it this way because so many people are going to ask right after this, what are they going to do with the Fed funds rate? Are they going to adjust it? And they still won't see it. Right? All the chaos around the world, all the turmoil, all the freaking out that people are having is because they don't understand this neutral interest rate. They don't understand R star. R star is the Federal Reserve's estimate of where the neutral interest rate is. And when you go and you look at the estimate of R star, it's a gap between the Fed funds rate and the neutral interest rate. Again, this is an estimate. It's not the reality. The reality comes over time. You get to look at it in the past. I would assume the estimate is decent. And if you look at the estimate of the neutral interest rate, known as R star by the Federal Reserve, you can see that that R star chart is falling. That means the gap is narrowing. That means the neutral interest rate is moving ever closer to the Fed funds rate. I want people to understand this fact. I cannot push it anymore on how important it is. We have 155 people watching. The 155 people who are watching this right now who are internalizing this, even if you're not getting it, try. Go back and do all the research you need to in order to be able to explain what R star is, to be able to explain the neutral interest rate. Once this takes place, you will have such a profound understanding of the economy, so much more advanced than most people. You know how hard it is for most people to even understand what the Fed funds rate is, let alone a neutral interest rate in relation to a Fed funds rate? Yeah. Once you internalize this, once you get it, your decision making on watching whether or not you should be building a house, buying a house, selling a house, understanding whether or not the economy is going to become more productive, more advanced, more, heated up, more aggregate demand heating up. Are you going to look at the news and wait for them to tell you that the interest rates are falling? Or are you going to look at the elevated inflation expectation and think to yourself, man, maybe I should check out R star and see if that is falling, the gap is narrowing, to see if maybe it's moving ever closer to the Fed funds rate. That might be less restrictive upon the economy. This may not be a bad time. Just saying. Every time they push it, every time they push elevated inflation, you push inflation higher, you lower the real interest rates. This is good stuff. Once you dive into it, once you know it, and once you see it, it's like you want to share it with everybody, but it's so deep and it's so complicated, and there's so much to understand and know about it. But once you see it, it's just like, I don't know, all the fear and anxiety of the world, I think, like, I don't have that anymore. Like, I don't look at things like in a way that a lot of people do. People who say, like, you live, that whole idea of old Klaus Schwab or whatever, you'll own nothing and be happy. People who internalize that in their head and take it into consideration should probably expect that for themselves. You should probably expect that for yourself because you believe that that's what's going to take place. And that's what's sad about that whole idea, is that they implant those memories, those ideas, those power pendulums, they put those in you. They're harvesting they're harvesting you. They're not harvesting you in the physical manner, they're harvesting your passion. You have a passion out there that was meant to drive you to do something that was not delivered them your energy. Every time you dive into one of their belief systems, well, every time you dive into the idea that this is the way it should be, and you fall into this narrative and the one that was delivered to you, what they are doing is they are zapping it all from you. They are just literally ripping it right out of you. You give it to them. You're delivering it to them, essentially. You go around and you try to get other people on board with it. You try to get them to join in on this energy and say, hey, let's go and meet this power together. And you all get on board, and everybody's just like, yes, this has got to happen. And you occupy your thoughts and your mind and your energy, even sometimes money and in time and all this other stuff that goes into it in order to create this sort of event of power that you just know is supposed to be the right way of going. And then eventually you see it all dissolve. And you wonder, man, whatever happened to that thing? How come we were so excited about it? How come there was so much news article? How many there was so much debate and all this other stuff about this thing, and now it's just gone? Right? See, that took your passion from you. It took your energy from you. It took your time and energy, all that. It took it right from you. You falling into this power pendulum that you saw within the political realm of what it is that you believe was the right thing, only to find that it never came to fruition. Think about what you could have been doing during that time. You could have been experiencing life in the way that you really, truly should have. How it is that you were meant to be here. See, I think about that all the time. People say, man, you're going to own nothing and be happy. And I laugh at that. I'm like, man, I already own nothing, man. I'm trying to own something, but, I really don't own that much. What are you going to take from me, man? Even if you took it from me, you'd be like, man, I don't want this. Here, you can have it back. That doesn't worry. Like, I am so far from worried about that. Who cares? It's just like, that's only for the people who actually want to get on that and worry and be in fear and uncertainty and doubt. I don't live in that worry. You see, you think about it, this is what they are doing, right? This is the simplest way to understand this. If you live in fear, uncertainty, and doubt, anxiety, fear, hate, all that other stuff, what it is that you are put yourself into a fight or flight energy, right? Fight or flight energy means that all your energy moves to the extremities. It's in your feet, it's in your hands, right? You're about ready to throw down or whatever, And so as you have this constant feeling of threat, then you constantly have your energies on the extremities where the negative is found. So now all the other negative energies that are out there, they recognize this feeling of fear, uncertainty, and doubt. And so as they recognize this fear, uncertainty, and doubt, they then react with you in that fashion. That creates an environment that shows you how the fear, uncertainty, and doubt is pretty evident. And so you just live in this energy. And it's obvious to you. And it's constant. And it's all over the place. Every time you turn on the TV, every time you turn on your YouTube, every time you turn on everything, you got this constant thing that's happening. And then you realize, man, I need to chill. I need to stop. I need to relax. I need to stop living in fear. I need to stop living this way. And you start moving that energy into the core. So pretty soon, instead of being on your extremities, it's out here in the center. This is where the peace is found. This is where the happiness is found. This is where love is found. This is where excitement is found. Excitement can be found on both ends of this, but ultimately, this is where you find the positive energy. And when you live in this state of positive energy, then guess what? All the world's energy of positive start becoming reflective of what it is that you are seeing out there, and then good positive things start to happen to you. It's simply that easy. Right? I know for a lot of people, they'd be like, well, dude, you need to, go and experience this hardcore thing that's happening to some other person. Okay, that's not me, right? I got to live in the life that I have been given. This is me here doing this. This is how I've experienced. Now, there was a time in my life where I was not doing well. I was many thousands of dollars in debt. I drank a lot. I had no expectations of what it was that I was going to do with my life in the world. I was just going to figure I would write it out, and whatever happened, happened. And there's some people who are meant to have something in their life, and there was other people who weren't, and I was one of the people who weren't. And I had grown to accept that. And I thought about all the negative energy and the, you know, just not feelings of growth or excitement or anything like that, right? It was very negative and downturning. And I knew at the time it was because of the intake of information, which was a lot of propagandized information. So once I got rid of that, and I said, okay, I'm not going to listen to this anymore. And most of the political stuff is propaganda. Think about it. Like, there's just hardly anything that ever comes to any of the crap that they talk about. They will put all kinds of ideas and all kinds of stuff. I can't even give you examples because I don't pay attention to it anymore, right? But they do, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then you try to get other people to be on board with it. And if they're not on board with it, you sit around being all frustrated, right? That is literally harvesting your energy and your power right from you. You could be doing something wonderful and for humankind, for yourself, for your friends and family. All kinds of things could be taking place right there, but you're absorbed up in another energy that is not going to come to anything of any kind of justice except for the fact that somebody's probably getting paid by advertisement. Let's read some comments. I'm sorry, guys. I was just kind of going off. Thank you for joining in on tonight's live stream. I hope you're enjoying it. We got 179 people watching with 45 likes. If you hit that like button, more people will join in on this YouTube live stream for us to have a better conversation. You are still many hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt because your mortgage debt. Well, dark brother, yes, I totally agree with you. You are right. But I am not permanently tied to this debt. I can sell the house, and if I was to sell it today, I can make a profit from it. So you're right. I don't own the house. I am in debt to the mortgage. I do have equity in the house, so I have a right to sell it. And even if I didn't have the mortgage, I would never truly actually own the house anyway. So you're right. I am thousands of dollars in debt, but I also have close to $100,000 in equity in the house. So, I mean, that was pretty cool too. I mean, to think about it, like, I've put more. Let's see, have I put more? Yeah, no, I haven't. Even the stuff that I have done as far as maintenance and money that's gone into it, I still have not made as much in payments, taxes, maintenance, all the stuff that's gone into this house. I have not put in that much as the house has gone up in price. That's what's nuts. Like, this area blew up in price. And when people were like, oh, just wait for your house price to come down, it did a lot, a huge amount, right? That's how ridiculously high it went. I mean, I would kid you not, there was at a time that the house was going up by more that I can make at my day job, my wife's day job, calling bingo and YouTube combined. The house was going up that much. It was ridiculous. So when it started to come down, and it came down a lot, I was totally expecting it. Now, when it came down to the level that it landed, I'm still like, nah, this is way high. Right? But this seems to be where it's at. And I see houses selling around here. And my area happens to be a unique area where the house prices are quite expensive considering what they really are. Right? It's a desired area. It's not booming. There's not a lot of people building here. There's not a lot of houses being built, but the houses that are here are expensive. It's a very desired area. And, I mean, everybody's going to have to pick their investment. And to me, like, I could sell this thing now, walk away with more money than I walked into it with, even after, payments and insurance and interest and maintenance and all the other stuff that goes with it. I mean, that's pretty good deal. That's not a bad choice. I didn't think so at the time, but All right, moving on. Nathan, believe me, most of my parents' credible threats were very credible and in fact happened all the time. Lots of laugh out loud. My mom always kept her promise. She said, "You're going to bet your ass she beat your ass." Oh, she was going to beat your ass, she beat your ass. All right. My best recommendation is to look for a direct sale from the seller. Conventional financing is not the biz right now, in my opinion. Thank you all night for being here. Let him be happy paying rent. I was paying rent. I would have been happy paying rent. In fact, I was trying to pay rent because I didn't want to have any debt. I only wanted assets. And if I was 100% in assets and zero liabilities, because rent is a 30-day liability, that would have made me totally happy because I wanted to be 100% in assets. Like, does that sound like a bad thing? Like somebody says, "Hey man, how much money you like? How many assets you got?" I don't know. I got a couple $100,000 in assets. How many liabilities you got? None. That would be badass to say that, right? But I can't say that. I got a huge liability. All right. Thanks for the live tonight, Simon. Thank you, Deja Vu, for being here. I appreciate you guys. We got 170 people watching with 53 likes. Go keep hitting that like button. I just wanted to come out and share some more of my ideas of the neutral interest rate and try to share what it is that I believe is taking place within Trump's push for, negotiations and all the other stuff that comes from it. If you think about what this is really doing to the neutral interest rate and how that is in relation to the Fed funds rate standing still, I think understanding that is probably going to be so much more important to know whether or not the economy is becoming restrictive or accommodating or less restrictive, I guess is probably the way to say that, than anything else. Like, if you can understand that, then you'll probably have a better grasp of it than just about anybody, including a lot of the central bankers. Because, you think about it, you have the feeling first. They have to look at the data. That's why I think it's so funny, is that we hear working class individuals who are like boots on the ground kind of people. We have a profound understanding, insight, and real time view of the economy if you can see it. If you can understand the macroeconomics of it, you at your day job, and I don't care what it is, if you're working as a garbage man, if you're waitressing, if you're commercial fishing, I don't care what it is. I don't care. It doesn't matter. You have an understanding in real time better than just about anybody else does. Right? And it's because people are waiting for you to live the life in order for them to read the data about it. So if you can recognize what's happening on a daily basis, right? We talked about this before, like the stripper index. I think, honestly, excuse me, I think a stripper would probably have a better understanding of economics in real time if they understood the macroeconomics level of it to the discussions that we have here on this channel, that they could probably understand and do stock trades so much faster and better than a lot of other people out there because they would see in real time how it is that the money is flowing. They would know. They could tell by their clientele, their customers, how many are coming in. There would be so much information that comes in that way. It would be unreal. Along with other jobs. I mean, it's not just that. That's just one that is probably incredibly noticeable as far as the changes to what it is that's taking place. Moving on. If you never own, you'll always owe. Or what? I mean, I think that's probably your own belief systems that force you into this idea. I don't look at anything being owed or owed. There is my presence in this world, and there is the things that I need, and there is the usefulness that I can be, and there is the abundance that can be had. And that's it. Now, how do you want to work with that is up to you. I mean, you can confuse the matter or not, but if you look at the world as an abundant world that is full of everything that you could ever possibly need, and then you counter that by saying the only way I can get it is with money, then you will have already defeated yourself. The money is the energy, just like anything else. If you need the food, a lot of people say, man, I'm hungry. All right. Well, do you need money to eat? No. All right. There's food in abundance all around. Yes, sometimes you do need money if you want to get it in a particular fashion, if you want to get it in a particular way, if you want to get it from a particular place. But to know that the abundance of food is constant and always. And it seems that many times people will hear that and think to themselves, well, explain famine and explain all these other things. And I have to think again, are you living in famine right now? Why are you trying to complicate the situation with what it is that you have going on in your life by believing that there is something taking place that isn't? I don't get that. Think about what is. Think about how it is that you can live your life to the fullest with what it is that you have right now, just simply by enjoying your present situation. Instead of thinking what it is you don't have, think about how awesome it is that you do have. How awesome it is that I can sit right here and enjoy the fact that the sun is blasting me through this windshield and not cooking me because I don't live in an area that's 92 degrees. All right. This is how I enjoy everything that I have going on around me, and therefore I don't worry about what it is that I need to, as far as acquiring money to buy. Money is just an energy just like everything else. It's coming to me when I need it and if I need it. What I need in my life was something more different, much more different. I wanted to speak on stage. I wanted to, meet new people. I wanted to travel around. I want to do all these other things, but I never thought about having to get the money first to get it. I just think about those things. And then they present themselves in my life. And then I think to myself, how do I get the money? No. I just think to myself, okay, well, I sure probably have to try and acquire something to make this happen. Is it going to come through somebody else paying for it? Is it going to happen through me putting out effort on a YouTube video? Is it going to come from me working my day job? Is it going to have to come on a credit card and me pay it later? One way or the other, this is going to have to take place. And then as life goes on, I realize, yeah, you will earn the money. The money will show. The donations through super chats come in. The advertisements do well. The views kick up. The algorithm grabbed a hold of it. Something happened that gave you the ability to make it there, but it wasn't necessarily the pursuit of money, right? It's the pursuit of doing the things that you normally do in life. And these present themselves in ways. All Nighter okay, here's an example of it. All Nighter, right, has experienced the rebel capitalist in a way that is like so different from what it is that most people would understand. Like All Nighter has probably, and he does this at every one of them, right? He gets to these things in networks unlike anybody else. He has built up such a community of people who know who he is. That is amazing, right? For just being All Nighter. People say, what is it that you have to do? You don't have to do anything. You just have to be you. That's it. You don't have to you don't have to prove anything to anybody anytime. All you have to do is exist because you're already perfect, right? There is nothing why would you change? I don't understand. Like, you don't have to dance around or be something different. You don't have to wait for something to be different. This is why, like, it always works in ways that you never had expected it to work. And it's always when you least expect it, or from a way that, was so much, beyond what it is that you had believed that was going to exist. It never works the way that you had intended, right? It needs to go down this particular path, right? You go down that particular path, you get frustrated, it never works, you give up, you just finally say, okay, screw it. I'm just not going to pursue it that way anymore, and whatever happens, happens, and then boom, it slowly manifests itself. Right? And you're like, oh, wow, well, there it is. It's because it's already known. It's already known what it is that you need in your life. You don't necessarily understand it. And if you were to just visualize what it is that you want in your life, almost as if it's just the picture. This is it. This is my ideal picture of what it is that I want. And then exit out everything that's in between. How you get there, the money that you need, the job that you need to get, all the other stuff. You exit out all that other stuff. Just say, man, I'm not going to look to try and put these pieces together to get there. The pieces will come together. It will step up in pieces. If you try to push it, say it needs to happen in this particular fashion, will most likely disrupt the situation and it will be very difficult to achieve it. If you just put it in your head and know that if you are going down a particular path, I'm saving, I have a mind of being able to put money down. I have that picture. Don't know exactly how much, don't know how exactly where. I'm just going to keep stacking up money to get that down payment. You're going to find that the down payment will start to build. It'll be there in a way that came so much faster and easier than you had ever imagined. So long as you don't put too much importance on it, but just have the picture of it and say, I know what I am doing is the right thing. And I mean, if your idea that is like, no, I'm doing the right thing, and then you go out and you spend all the money at the bar, and then you're like, well, maybe I'll do the right thing next week. That's not it. Wrong. No, not going to work. All right. Sir, you just proved my point. You just admit if you don't actually own property, the government just is renting from. Yeah. All right, so many banks around the world are in trouble if they mark to market today because they own so many billions of US treasuries, a 3% for the last 20 years. You know, I don't consent to be born, so I did not consent to be born into slavery. Well, again, I think that's all in I think that really comes down to the meaning that you have given it. And I can understand how it is that you can look at things that are taking place within the government, within, the lack of constitutional awareness, all the other things that kind of go down with it. You can say, man, I was born into the slavery and this isn't right. So you've given it a meaning that you were born into slavery. Guess what? You are going to live a slave life. That's what's sad about this, is that the slavery aspect only comes from you giving it that meaning. Do you know how many people use the exact same debt, not the one that drives them into slavery, but one that drives them into cash flowing assets? The exact same process that causes you to be a slave causes them to be a king. It's the exact same one. How you bought, how you used it, what you were doing with it is the determination on whether or not you went into slavery or not. Right? The experience that you have told yourself that this is one of slavery, while other people are one of fantastic wealth and luxury. And they're using the same thing. They both went out, they both took debt, they both bought different things. One of them went off and partied, and the other one bought cash flowing assets. I wonder which one separated themselves from everybody else. I mean, it's all on how you want to look at it. You can be a hippie and check out from society and say, oh man, I don't want any part of this, and I'm not going to do this anymore, and I'm not going to be part of the system, and I'm going to live on a commune, and we're going to grow our own food, and we're going to live this way for the rest of our lives, and it's really awesome. Right? Well, maybe for some people that is. I mean, I'm not going to knock it. Sounds great, right? For like a weekend, but I like showers and I like cars and I like going to restaurants and stuff like that. So, no, I'm not going to live no hippie life because that's not really for me. For a weekend, I might, though. That'd be kind of fun. Right? But that's the reality of the situation. Right? So, most people are probably not going to live a life of wealth, but you can give it meaning that it is full of abundance. You don't need wealth. You don't need, I mean, maybe you do need a Ferrari. I don't need no Ferrari. I don't need any. I like my Suburban here. This thing's badass as far as I'm concerned. And what I think is funny about it is that a lot of people will look at it and be like, oh, dude, man, what a busted down, ugly car you drive or whatever. And I'm like, whatever, like I don't give a shit. Like, what opinion do I, that doesn't, your opinion of what kind of car I drive, that does not, like, whatever, because this car isn't meant for me to be looking cool. I don't know what would I be looking cool for, I mean, I guess I could look cool for the YouTube channel. That'd be kind of fun, but, I mean, who am I? The dude who works down there at the lumberyard. I always have been. That's no difference. The YouTube channel does great. Sometimes it does really awesome. It's given me the ability to have a life that I never thought I was going to be able to have. Got me out of debt. It makes me feel so much better about what it is that I got going on here. I absolutely have so much appreciation for YouTube and everybody who's on here, all the subscribers who have subscribed to the channel, all the donations to the channel, everything that you have ever done to support the channel. I cannot believe how much you have changed my life here on this. This is absolutely amazing. But I can't pretend to be somebody I'm not. Yeah. Would I like a new truck? Absolutely. But I don't need a new truck. I got this old Suburban, and this is going to work out just fine considering that there's so many other things that I should be spending my money on. I got a lot of time to make up for. I wasted a lot of it all the way until I was 40. So yeah, I wasn't one who made smart right moves. And in my opinion, buying a new truck or a new car or doing something like that is far from the right move. The right move is to continue to stack Bitcoin, stocks, bonds, silver, and gold. All right, putting money into the house. These are the things that I think are the smart moves. So a luxurious experience? No, not one. I don't care. Right? Like luxurious experience is not the big deal for me. Wealth can be measured by how good your pot shrooms are. Seriously, they are not more accurate. There's not a more accurate way of wealth, in my opinion. I guess, I don't know. I mean, if you live in Oregon, this is full of abundant weed. So, I mean, if you want to judge somebody by how good their weed is and how much wealth they have, like I know some pretty much dirt bags who have some killer weed. All right. So if you want to go and judge somebody by their weed that they grow, you can go and judge that dipshit for all you want as being a wealthy individual with a luxurious experience of having decent weed. But to me, that's a pathetic way of looking at it. I'm sorry. All right. Got some live resin sugar. Okay. I don't even. What is this? I don't have kids and drive a beater while stacking paper. Yeah. And I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of people who really enjoy their vehicles, like, I mean, I have a friend of mine. He's like, going on 80 years old. He has a collection of cars. He has no better thing in his life that he enjoys more than to tinker with them vehicles, man. He loves it, and it is just like his thing. He likes getting an old car and fixing it all back up and making it all new again, and it's like his thing. It's like that's what he does. That's not the same thing as somebody going off and buying a luxurious experience. I mean, you can justify it any way you want. It's just the way it is. Some people like to have a new car. If you want to have it, that's fine. What you are doing is moving into a luxurious experience. You can justify it with reliability and, comfort and safety and all this other stuff that goes along with it. But whatever, I mean, those are all justifications. I drive a 1997 Suburban. I got 165,000 miles on it. Runs great. Man, what do you need? I mean, at the end of the day, we're both doing the exact same thing. Oh, okay. Taxation without representation is tyranny, not slavery. What is going on? Okay. Okay. Good Lord. Do we have any guys? You guys are talking about taxations and stuff like that. Is there any other questions back in here? I guess I just kind of stopped reading comments and people don't understand that once you have kids, cars that you drive are no longer a big deal in your life. Oh man, ain't that the truth? All right, I drive an old 2017 Model S and refuse to trade it in for a new one. Yeah, man, 2017. I got a 99, a 97, and a 2001. I mean, well, no, that's not true. I also got a damn Ford. Nah, I try not to think about it. I got an Escape with a blown transmission. All right. Your life gets miserable. See, that's the thing. Look, the new vehicle that we have bought, making payments on it, trying to be the reliable thing, the safety one, the one that we can have, that we can drive around like back and forth to Portland, ended up being the one that crapped out on me. Here are my old vehicles that I paid essentially no money for. Well, this one I paid the most for. The Suburban I paid $3,000 for. Oh my gosh, tell me you're rich without saying you're rich, right? All my other vehicles, like the S10 cost me $1,200. The Explorer I got for free, but it cost me about $1,000 to get it up and working again. So I don't pay a whole lot for my vehicles, like practically nothing. And I consider it $100 a month, right? So like for example, the $1,200 S10, if I could drive that for 1 year, I got my money's worth, right? $100 a month, not bad. $25 a week, $5 a day. If that's the cost of renting a vehicle for a year, that's pretty damn cheap, right? So when I think about vehicles, I think about them on $100 a month. If it can last me $100, like, for example, this Suburban, if this lasts me for 2.5 years, then I'll get my money's worth out of it. And that's how I look at it. If I can do that, then man, that's the cheapest way to drive. Everybody else are paying, $8,000-9,000 a month to drive. Oh my God. Are you serious? No way. I ain't gonna do it. Like, the cost of me to drive is the insurance and gas. My wife is like works 5 minutes from home. I live down a highway. Like, I mean, I get it on the highway, I do 55 till I get to work. It's like, the amount of money that you can save and invest and have for the future is just amazing when you consider what it is that a car takes from you. It's like politics taking your passion from you. It's the same thing. Cars take your money, they take your future, they take your everything. So I hope you really enjoy it. If you like your new vehicle, I hope you really, really enjoy it. And if you can afford it, that's awesome. Most people can't. Most people have a new car and then bitch about like not being able to afford things. Right? I don't bitch about not being able to afford stuff ever. Like, that's like, somebody was just like, whoa, that's expensive fish and chips. Like, I don't think about it like that. I mean, I kind of thought about it when I got the fish and chips with George the other night over at the Hilton, because, of course, it's the Hilton. But, I order the fish tacos or whatever, and it was kind of interesting to see, like the tacos had a chunk of meat on it, like that big, and I'm like, yeah, that's kind of what I expected. And I laughed about it. And they were decent, and I enjoyed it, and we had a great conversation hanging out there, so the experience was well worth it. And I didn't even pay for it. It was Georgia paid for it, so I didn't care. You know? So, but that's just the point of it. And again, like, the experience itself, right? I didn't think about having, like, did I have the money? Absolutely. I could have bought dinner for everybody there. It wasn't like that. It was the fact that the dinner there was like I was invited to it, right? And that's the experience that I believe I was like essentially given. Hey, it's time for dinner. Here's dinner. There you go. You don't have to worry about coming up with the idea of it, the money for it, or anything else. And this is the way that I go through life. I just think about it in that fashion. Whatever's next is next. Yeah. Mowing the lawn was one of the deals that I had to deal with because the universe was saying, hey, man, you didn't do the lawn before you left. So I ended up doing that. Right? This is how it's easy. Life is easy if you just let it be easy. I don't know about you all, but if it is up to me, I would tell Trump's tax cut expires and to not do the tax cut too, but all the money paying down the debts and defense budget. Yeah. Um, huh. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, I just don't see paying down the debt. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't see there being return of jobs. I just don't think that there's going to be anything other than more war, more debt, and more separation between the rich and the poor. I know that's kind of a doomsday way of looking at it, but once you have kind of accepted it for that fact, then you can also recognize it in the Cantillon effect. You can recognize it in Triffin's dilemma. You see the bullwhip effect and Gresham's law playing out. Then it's like all of a sudden you don't worry in the fashion that says, hey man, we can solve a problem or we can fix it. More, it's like, hey, I recognize that there is issues that are happening out there that are far beyond my control, but if I recognize them in a way that I can then make decisions for myself that are most appropriate, I think I can actually function through this world without actually having to force anybody to change anything about what it is that's going on. I don't have to have them fix the taxes. I don't have to fix the budget. I don't have to have them do anything other than, exist in the way that they exist. So I guess they're going to do what they do. But for me, I don't have to then depend upon them to make the most appropriate right decision. I can do that for myself. And although there is complications out there and there are times when it gets really heavy, like, man, this is intense. There's a lot to hold on to and understand. But then once you recognize it for what it is, you can say, okay, now I'm going to make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself. And I know this is hard, right? For a lot of people, it's very difficult to switch their way of thinking because they have focused so much on politics and incorporated that into their life that they can't really see it any other way. And the decisions that are made within politics are now impacting their life because they have positioned themselves for that, right? Like literally position themselves so that a political decision will impact their life. They have done that to themselves because there are people out there that it doesn't affect. Like, believe me, since the Obama administration, I essentially have not cared one little bit who has been president. Like, none. All right. I mean, it's just like I don't think they make the best and appropriate decisions for me. I don't think they're making right or wrong decisions for anything. Right? I mean, they make a decision, and some people think it's right, some people think it's wrong. It's not up to me to say that it's right or wrong. It's up to me to give a meaning that says I need to understand what it is that this decision is doing so that I can make the best and most appropriate decisions for myself. Because right or wrong doesn't make any difference to the rest of the world out there what I believe. Right? My opinion on that doesn't change the world. I can say it's right or wrong, and I can try to convince other people to say it's right or wrong, but that's just joining in on a power pendulum that is then zapping my opinion or zapping my passion from me, my energy from me, and I'm not going to go down that road. Instead, I'm going to look at it and say, okay, I see it for what it is, and I'm going to then look at my life and say, okay, how do I accordingly deal with this for what it is that I see that is happening out there? But that's it. At the moment that I say that this is the way it should be or could be, or this is the way it could be different, or this is what he's going to do that's going to impact everybody's lives in a way that says, like, hey, this is going to benefit you or something, then I'm falling into the power pendulums like everybody else, and it'll eventually be exhausted and I'll be left drained without, any passion left or energy. Because think about it, that's what happens to you. You've done it. You know it. I mean, it might feel differently, and I'm probably describing it kind of, oddly, but, you understand what I'm saying because you've done the same thing. Who will announce the recession? See, this is another thing. Like, could you possibly believe that there may very well be a recessionless recession? Like, I understand that the unemployment is much higher. Now, does the Federal Reserve see the unemployment much higher? No, they see the unemployment is historically low. Go and look at the chart of unemployment. It's low. Now, inflation is coming down. Right? So if you have inflation coming down to the 2% target and the unemployment is low, and you have the neutral interest rate, which seems to be rising, which is accommodating to, or less restrictive to the economy, I don't see where the recession could come. Like everybody is screaming recession, recession, recession. They're screaming tariffs, They're screaming fear, uncertainty, and doubt. This in turn is raising the neutral interest rate and making the economy less restrictive. Like people wonder why we have such a resilient economy. And I keep trying to say that this is it. This is why I keep saying you have to focus in on this neutral interest rate. Regardless of anything, if you can understand the neutral interest rate, right, if you'll have no other choice but to understand so many other things about the central banking system and the economy, right? Like if you could understand the neutral interest rate, there's so many parts and pieces that are needed for you to truly understand it that just keep focusing in on that and looking at that and trying to learn what it is. And I guarantee you will build up the rest of the understanding of what's going on within the central banking system. By understanding the neutral interest rate rising and falling in relation to the Fed funds rate, if you dive into that little section of this and really become very, proficient at it and understanding what it is and how to look at it and recognize, man, you'd be miles and miles ahead of everybody. I don't know what else to say because nobody knows it. Like you can't find information on it. Go look. Right? I'm the only one who talks on this kind of level and this depth of it. If you do not understand it from the central banking point of view, the way that they have described it, researched it, try to internalize it so that you can then do a video that's like this, there's no information. There's nowhere to go. I don't know what to say. That's why you can't find it out there and nobody else talking about it, is because there's literally no place that you can go to find information that is specifically talking about it in this fashion. Right? You'll find people who talk about the neutral interest rate. You'll find people who talk about elevated inflation expectations. You can find people who talk about all these little parts and pieces, but very few will put it all together the way that I have, describing it the way that I have done. Right? You will find people will start doing it. They will, because this is the truth. This is the fact. This is how it's going down. You know? And I mean, everybody else I know is going to say the exact same thing about what it is that they believe as far as their theories go. I'm the only one who's not selling anything. And you can fact check everything. This isn't my opinion. This is the Federal Reserve own words. You got to, and they say it through their speeches. You know. Let's go check out the super chat. I'm going to give it like a little bit longer here, guys. Chicken Life 336, man. Thank you so much for the $2.99. Man, you've been with the group for a long time, and I really appreciate you still being around, man. I hope things are going well for you. Thank you for the super chat. Controversial opinion. We need to ban porn and legalize prostitution in this country. No, that's all free, right? Not free to be, but down, like not restricted. I don't understand. Like, the more you limit something, here's the thing. If you want to give something some value, make it illegal. There is no better way to give something even more value than to make it illegal. Sex, drugs, firearms, all the stuff, right? If you make it, you put a ban on it, you restrict it, you take something that somebody wants and you tell them no and you take it away from them, they will pay a lot of money for it. So yeah, if you want to make it a more, illegal, black market, unregulated, and absolute free for all for people to avoid taxes and all the other stuff, yeah, make that stuff illegal. Right? I mean, believe me, I know. I live in Oregon, right? Oregon is probably one of the greatest states to recognize what it's like to have something that most people thought of as being 100% illegal and to have it literally essentially decriminalized long before anybody else realized it. Marijuana was never a crime in Oregon. Do you realize that? Not since the 70s. It was never a crime. It was a misdemeanor. So you get caught with less than an ounce that wasn't packaged up for distribution. You had a less than an ounce on personal use. It was like a $600 ticket. You went on your way. All right? They confiscated it from you, wrote you a ticket, and you went on your way. Nobody went to jail. Nobody lost their livelihood. Nobody went to prison. None of that shit. All right? But because it was illegal everywhere else, it was really valuable, and Oregon grew a lot of weed. All right? It was like the number one agricultural crop in Oregon was marijuana, right? Because we could grow, it was just an area that it could grow so much of it. And there was such low, authority for, like, everybody was just like, whatever. Nobody cared, right? It was a great state for recognizing what it does, because then this profitable crop all of a sudden became very unprofitable, and now it doesn't mean anything to anybody. Hold on one second. The only thing it means to people is people who don't have access to it. You always have, you never get. It didn't matter. This is a stupid weed. All right. You should make loophole tax holes in the for corporations illegal. Also, politicians trading while they are in office illegal. I'm not saying that something shouldn't happen. I mean, I guess that would probably benefit some people. But my worry over that is pretty much non-existent. Like, I don't care. Like, that's not for me. The energy of money is going to come to me when I need the money. Instead, I just need the energy of being able to get on stage. I need the energy of being able to be with my family. I need the energy of being able to do the networking and connecting and continue to operate within the realms of belief that I have right now without having to stress about it. If I needed to stress about, hey, they need to fix it with tax loopholes and all this other stuff that's going on out there, then money would begin to become real important to me, and then all of a sudden I would have to frustrate myself with the trying to acquire it and all the other things that go along with those things. I just don't do that. Believe me, like, I want to make a lot of money. Like, in my mind, in my heart, I would love to be making $50,000 a month doing something, right? Now, that's not the case, but that's okay. Because what I really want is to be able to pay my bills on time, relax with my family, and enjoy the experience of what it is that I have going on right now. And I totally get it, right? Like, I don't have to try that hard. I mean, I have to try. I have to put out effort every single day, and I have to do it a lot of it. But it doesn't like I have to like try to figure it out. This is a free-flowing energy that you're witnessing right now with in this video. Everything that I do at work, I don't. It's like it's almost seems effortless. I could do it all day long. It's effortless. I'm not trying. It's just going. I'm just flowing, right? Constantly, and the money will come when it comes. All right. If what it is that I need is requiring money for me to do it, then money will show up for me to do it. Right? That's the way it's always gone down. Anytime I've ever tried to get the money, it's been very frustrating. It's difficult. I have to put a lot of pain and effort and energy into it, right? And only to get rewarded in just a small way, really just compensated for time. It's not a very rewarding way of going about it. But if I just share with the world what it is that I think is helpful, useful, I put it out there consistently. I believe that there is a bigger picture in which it is that I want, and I realize, man, things just show up all of a sudden, out of nowhere. They, in a way that I didn't think it was going to happen. Every time I tried to make it happen, it wouldn't happen. So I gave up on trying to make it happen. I just know that if I try to make it happen, I'm probably going to screw it up. So instead, just know that it's going to happen at some point. Sometimes it takes longer than others. Giving up on it is easy. Believing that it's not out of the realms of possibility, that's hard. Getting on stage, speaking to people about economics was something that I had always had in my head. How I was going to get there, I had no clue. One day it happened. I was so scared, so nervous. It was the biggest moment in my entire life to get up on stage at the Rebel Capitalist in Houston and share with the audience, 850 people there in that audience, my ideas, my thoughts, my opinions on what it was that was taking place inside of the economy. I could not believe how overwhelming of an experience it was. Literally like the greatest moment, one of the greatest moments of my life. I couldn't say it was the greatest, but it's got to be up there, at the top, right? Something I will never ever forget. Now I go on stage, it feels very natural. I don't feel the excitement like I did that day. I'm excited. I'm a little nervous. You're up in front of people. But sharing my thoughts and ideas on stage feels very natural. It doesn't feel complicated. It doesn't feel like I'm, nervous and, got these butterflies and all this other stuff that's going on with it. It feels very appropriate and like I'm meant to be there because I was meant to be there. I didn't ask for it. I did in my mind. My picture, my overall picture asked for it. I never asked a single person, can I go please speak at your conference? But I was invited to many conferences. This is how it works. And it's difficult. It's difficult for people to understand that's how it goes down. They need it to be more complicated than that. But it's not. It's literally just giving it up and saying everything will work out the way it should. And knowing that what you are doing is appropriate, useful, and helpful. Let's go check out some more super chats. All right, we got Oak Flats with the $7.99. I'm not sure what the A is there. If markets crash like dollar strength as well, can it survive it on more time, or do prices just go up forever and ever? Well, here's an interesting thing to think about, is that the problem that the Federal Reserve was facing was a deflationary concern, right? Our concern is price inflation. That's our major concern. This is what we are nervous about, right? And so we think about like prices going up forever. But I think about the Federal Reserve and how it seems that everything that you learn about the Fed is backwards from what it is that you believe is taking place. It's so funny, right? But the Federal Reserve itself is in a position in which that they are very nervous about a deflationary scenario. They would much rather have an inflationary scenario. Right? And so if you are in a position in which that you are worried about prices going up forever, this is actually a condition in which that the Federal Reserve would rather have you be in. So propagating information and beliefs and ideas that pushes that is something that is going to benefit them in the long run. Now, I know this sounds funny, but the Federal Reserve and the way that they have conducted themselves over the past, 100 years has really put them in a position in which that there is no competitor. Right? There's nothing. There's nobody else who can compete against it. And because of that, it's actually causing a situation in which that the Federal Reserve may find it very difficult to provide the world with the liquidity that it demands. That means providing the world with enough dollars. Now, I know that sounds like, whoa, wait a minute, enough dollars? Everybody's worried about there being too many dollars. But what a lot of times is misunderstood is that there is a lot of dollar denominated debt. And that dollar denominated debt not only is going to demand dollars in order to get out of that debt, but then once that dollar denominated debt disappears, it has been used like dollars while it was in existence. That disappears as well. There's dollars disappearing out of the system in a profound way. It will strengthen the dollar, making stuff cheaper. So understanding how it is that the dollar has gotten into the position that it has is a very long story filled with lots of propagandized information, which most of it being pretty factual, but the meaning that they put behind it is very different from that of what it is that has truly taken place. And to understand Gresham's law and how the gold standard had to be removed because there was so much paper currency that was driving out the good currency. Paper is bad. Gresham's law says bad currency chases out good. Again, all kinds of information, books are written on it. There is tons and tons of people who will tell you how this was a manipulated thing that, is done by the big power elites and all this other stuff. That's fine. It's a great story, and I'm not saying that it's not true. All I'm saying is that the underlying economic forces allowed those people to do it. And if you can understand those underlying economic forces, then you would understand why those people did what they did, right? Not only did they have the ability, but why wouldn't they? Right. I mean, that's why I just don't blame them. It was just like, oh, if they didn't do it, somebody else would have. All right. So somebody was going to be in that position. It's better to look at it that way. Yes, they did, it's damaging and it's hurtful and it's painful for everybody else out there, but somebody was going to do it anyway. So whatever, right? We got to figure out what it is that we got to do, not blame other people for, whatever it is that they're doing. More super chats in there. Yeah, Oak Flats, $2.99. Like, are we at the last crash or second last crash? I'm not worried about a crash. I'm not worried about a crash because what I see happening within the economy is a monetary policy that is being conducted using psychology. And with this psychology, they push an elevated inflation expectation that raises the neutral interest rate and makes the economy less restricted. I believe that this is the form of monetary policy that they will be using going into the future, and an adjustment of the neutral interest rate, which is an interest rate you cannot see, observe in real time. But if you can adjust that neutral interest rate based off of the expectations of the people and the markets going into the future, they can conduct a monetary policy while sitting on their hands. That's what I believe is happening right there. So understand that everything that is happening, and if you're asking questions about it and like what is going to happen in the future, it's because the expectations that you have had about inflation going into the future, think about the mainstream media and the narrative that they're putting out, because whatever it is that you're hearing and believing, that's the monetary policy. Right? People will ask, well, when do they adjust rates? Doesn't matter. That's not the monetary policy. The monetary policy is the expectations that you have about it. Right? Because your expectations about it is going to raise and lower the neutral interest rate, which is the real issue that they are looking at, is the gap between the two, whether or not that shrinks or widens. And if the expectation rises, the gap shrinks, R star falls, economy becomes less restricted. People wonder why we live in a resilient economy. This is it, right? I can explain it over and over again, and I can try and do it from different angles to try and make more sense of it, but this is it. Like, I can't say it any other way. I've done videos better than 2 years ago describing how this works, how this neutral interest rate is rising. It's a good video. Somebody actually took it and animated it and put all kinds of neat graphs and stuff all going on with it. There's a link in the community section of this channel where you can go and look at all the different posts that I put, and there's that video is in there. What else? Oh, I was gonna push Patreon. I'm gonna start putting stuff on Patreon. I don't know if I'm gonna do it every day, right? But I'm gonna start putting more stuff on Patreon and seeing if I can't be a little bit more active over there. I have a few members to the Patreon site. There's a link down in the description, I'm sure. And again, I have not been very active there, but I'm going to try and be there. I'm going to go there like at least once a day to check for messages to see if anybody's commented on any of the posts. And I'm going to try and post there a couple of times a week. And at least be somewhat active there. And if I can, build it up and be in the habit of it, then, maybe I can actually, do something with that one as well. Because I just seem to be just so stuck on YouTube. All right, Oak Flats. So the U.S. dollar will be forever, you reckon? No, it won't be forever, right? China will always buy the U.S. bonds. Well, that's okay. There's a good question. All right. No one can compete. Another good question. What about the Saudis? Okay. Good. Perfect. I love this. These are awesome questions. I love it. And let's break these down one at a time. Thank you so much for the super chat, and thank you for so much for this little blip of content that we're about ready to provide for you. Okay, let's talk about the first part of the question there. So the dollar will be forever, you reckon? No, I do not believe that the dollar will be forever, right? There will come a time in which that it will fail. How far out into the future, when that comes, what it looks like is going to be anybody's guess. There's still the idea of central bank digital currencies, negative interest rates, cashless societies. There's all kinds of things that can keep the dollar going for a very long time. So that's a very difficult question to answer. But in the long term, no, it can't, right? I don't believe that the dollar can last forever. Do I see it demise anytime soon? Nope, I do not. Okay. Next part of the question. China will always buy the U.S. bonds. No, it won't always buy the U.S. bonds, but it really doesn't have any other choice on an asset that can be used like the U.S. bonds. See, here's the thing. There is no asset out there like the U.S. Treasuries. It's the widest, deepest, most liquid market in the entire world. Nothing comes even close to it. So if you wanted to have a particular item, right? This thing here, these are darts, right? I got these darts. Now, in order for this thing to be liquid, I would have to find a buyer, somebody who would be willing to buy these darts. Now, I can go to the bar where I can play darts, and I'd probably find somebody to buy them, right? So there, it would be fairly liquid. Anywhere outside the bar, it wouldn't be liquid at all. Right? I mean, I might find somebody down the street, whatever. I'd have to do some real searching for it in order for somebody to buy my darts. Now, consider that like the bonds, right? Only now, instead of having darts, I have something like, I don't know, something that everybody would buy instantaneously. I can't think of it. Okay, like, let's just imagine like a gold bar, right? And that whether or not you're in the bar, or if you're outside the bar, or if you're over at the jeweler, or if you're wherever you go, that gold bar is liquid. It's just about anywhere where you go, you're going to find somebody who's going to be willing to give you some money for it, right? Not like the darts. So that's very similar to the bonds, right? That's a good way of kind of imagining that anywhere you go with the U.S. Treasury bond, somebody's going to give you money for it, no matter where you go, like anywhere. You do that same thing with a Chinese bond? Maybe not so much. Even a Chinese dollar-denominated bond, one that China issued out of their nation that is due in US dollars, right? Now you take a US Treasury that's due in dollars, and you take a Chinese bond that is due in US dollars. And you go to the market and you say, which one is more valuable? They'll point at the US Treasury. That Chinese one, that may not be so liquid, right? You may not find a buyer for it. It may not be like, trustworthy, not like the US Treasury is. So here's where the separation really comes in, is that there is nobody else out there that has produced an asset like the US Treasury debt, right? Even if these other nations, even if you had one that was worthy of trust, right? What you have to do is you have to tell that nation, hey, listen, we trust you that you're going to pay your debt back. Now we need you to go into a stupid, ridiculous amount of it in order to provide us with that safe and liquid asset. At that point, nobody will trust them anymore, because now they are severely deep in debt in order to provide the world with that safe and liquid asset of that US, like that US Treasury. See, no nation is willing to go into deep debt as the United States has done. The United States is the biggest debtor in the history of time, right? So now when we think about it in this fashion, no other nation can provide the world with a safe and liquid asset like the US Treasury. Even if they were to attempt to provide it, it would no longer be safe and liquid, right? See, in a safe nation who you trust their debt is probably because they have a limited amount of it. If they just went into massive debt issuance, you wouldn't trust them anymore. Like, people don't even trust the United States. How is it that somebody's going to duplicate what it is that the United States is doing? Like, they certainly wouldn't trust anybody else, right? They don't even want to trust the United States. They don't even like the dollar. Why would they trust somebody else's foreign fiat currency? It doesn't make any sense. Right? So there's no rise of another nation. They can't do it. Right? And so will China always buy U.S. Treasury debt? Probably, because there's nothing else out there that can duplicate what it is that the U.S. Treasury debt can do and be that safe and liquid asset, the world's widest, deepest market. So, yeah, they will always buy U.S. Treasury debt. Think about this. Even Russia, sanctioned Russia, has purchased U.S. Treasury debt. Everybody wants it. It is the safe and liquid asset of the world. That's it. Not even gold does the same thing, right? Now, in my opinion, it's a very comparable. It's like the same thing that kind of duplicates. But I guarantee you, the financial world, insurance companies, banking systems, all those other people do not look at gold and treasuries the same way. They look at treasuries in a far different level. Okay, going on with that question. No one can compete. No, I think we already answered that. No one can compete. What about the Souths? Not even them. Right? And it's for the same reason. Nobody is like, they would have to be forced into a debt to the extent that the United States has done. No nation is willing to do that. It's a huge amount of debt that they would have to duplicate, put out there to the world, be safe and liquid, and have the trust. Like, it's just like nobody even wanted to give it to the United States. It kind of just took it, right? And now people are like, hey, man, we don't trust you. We don't trust the dollar. And I was just like, yeah, that's fine. What are you going to do? Nothing. All right. There's nothing else you can do. There's nowhere you can go. Like, hey, let's do Bitcoin. Sure, I'm down for it. I got a Bitcoin wallet. I got some gold and silver. I'll do transactions. I will do whatever it is that anybody wants to do as far as transactionable items, currencies, whatever, man. I'm on board, right? But I'm telling you now, there's nothing else out there like the US dollar, and there ain't nothing that's going to replace it. I'm down for it. Let's do it. I'll play the game. I mean, I'll totally play the game of replacing the dollar with you. I don't mind. I'll transact in gold and silvers and Bitcoin and all the other stuff and say, hey, let's get out of the dollar. Let's do it. It ain't going to work. Because those currencies are good currencies. And fiat currency is a bad currency. And Gresham's law has already stated that if you have a bad currency that is accepted in the system, it's going to drive out all the good currency. While you and I try to transact in gold and silver and Bitcoin, other people out there who are not trying to transact in gold and silver are going to transact in gold and silver and take it all for themselves and hoard it away. And there will be no more gold and silver because we have put it all into the system and let people use fiat currency to buy it all for themselves and hoard it away. Right? The fiat currency system, it cannot die, right? I mean, it can die. It cannot die in a sense that you can replace it. You can't do that. The fiat currency has to run its course and be over. They come up with an idea that says, hey, I got this great idea. We can introduce gold into the system and start doing transactions alongside of dollars. What you were going to do is you were going to put all your gold into the system, and then everybody who has fiat currency who recognizes that there's gold in the system will take their fiat currency and hand it over for the gold and hoard the gold for themselves. And then there will be no more gold in the system. Because that's what I would do. I mean, that's what I would do. Yeah. Unless the fiat currency completely collapsed altogether and leaving you with no other choice but to operate with gold, then gold would just get hoarded away. And so, nope, nobody can touch it. Staying just ahead of the neutral rate, right? Just ahead of the neutral rate. I think the idea behind this rising and falling of the neutral rate is to understand in what direction it is moving on accordance to the belief system of the markets at the time. Right? So if you have, and then also if the Federal Reserve is moving in itself. So the Fed can move closer to the neutral interest rate, or the neutral interest rate can rise on an inflation expectation. Since you can't observe the neutral interest rate, if the Federal Reserve stands still and over time you have consistent elevated inflation expectations, you can assume that the neutral interest rate will rise. You can find evidence of this by using the Fed's estimate of R star, which is, again, not a real-time understanding of the neutral interest rate, but the best guess scenario of where the Federal Reserve believes that the neutral interest rate is in accordance to the Federal Reserve's Fed funds rate, which is essentially showing the gap between the two. Again, that is the most important thing. Anything else that we look at will be complicated unless you are looking at that. Right? Because if you try to look at what if the Federal Reserve lowers rates and does you have all these questions. See, this is the thing. Think about how come here the Fed has not the adjustment of the Fed funds rate not only is no longer an effective tool for monetary policy, but then even when they do move it, it creates the opposite effect within the markets that people had anticipated. So the more you look at it, the more frustrated you are going to be with your outlook going into the future, because even when they do move, it doesn't result in the it doesn't result in the way that people had anticipated it. So people thought that the Fed was going to lower rates and mortgage rates were going to go down, but the Fed lowered rates and mortgage rates went up, right? And again, people were like, well, what happened? And they try to explain it. And I keep saying, just look at the neutral interest rate. The neutral interest rate will show whether or not the economy is becoming accommodating or restrictive. Now, if you're looking for a better price on your home, then probably what you are going to do is going to experience difficult times waiting, right, for this to happen. Meanwhile, there's people out there who are in a position to deal with an economy that is less restrictive, and they are participating within the economy while you're waiting for house prices to come down or interest rates to come down. You see the difference within this? What if the Fed doesn't move ever again, but they only attempt to move the neutral interest rate in relation to the Fed funds rate? They could get, what if they were able, what if? All right, all these what ifs. What if the neutral interest rate does find the Fed funds rate, and from that point on, they raise and lower the inflation expectation to try and bounce around the Fed funds rate for the rest of the time, forever? Right? Can they make the economy restrictive or accommodative just by the expectations? Absolutely, they could. Do they already have it within their capabilities to stimulate the economy with, government checks and stuff like that? Yeah, you bet they can. Can they lower rates in order to make that happen? Sure. If they lowered rates from a high neutral interest rate, they could stimulate the economy in a very profound way. Get far enough below neutral, way below neutral. All right. See, to me, I look at all these possible what ifs that come to the future, and every day that I see the inflation expectation getting pushed out there, I think to myself, man, this is so winning for the Federal Reserve. Not only are they getting their ammo back, the economy is becoming less restrictive. They're sitting on their hands doing nothing at all. Right? Meanwhile, Donald Trump's telling them how bad of a job he's doing, so nobody understands what the hell is going on. Yeah. And that's what's funny, because Powell isn't even in control of any of this stuff. He's literally not even in control of any of it. He has control of his vote. Thank you, Uneducated. Your tax tips are perfect. My tax tips? I don't give tax tips. Like, you're right about tax deductions and the whole thing general. Thank you, from Australia. Tax tips? I don't give tax tips. I don't even know about taxes. I don't know about that one, man. I'm sorry, bro. I really appreciate the super chat, but I don't know what I know about taxes, because I don't. That's not my. That's not that's not my thing. You know. The end will come slowly, then all at once. Yeah, but see, even if it does come, like, I think I'm like prepared for that. It's just like, wow, if the end comes and the whole dollar system crashes, that ought to send my gold and silver to the moon. Probably going to be a difficult time, so I'm glad I have firearms and know how to use them really well. And I live in kind of a abundant area for food. Like, there's plenty of food that just happens to grow or be in my area. It's not like that difficult to get. I don't want to go into like hunter survival mode, because that's probably going to be fairly difficult with tens of thousands of people in the area. But let's try it. Let's try it out. I'm not scared of it. I'm like, none of the collapse, none of the idea, none of that is like, I don't have no worry about any of that stuff. I mean, if it happens, let's go for it. Let's make it. Let's go. Let's do it. But what I believe is going to take place is the things that we have seen going on: more war, more debt, more separation between the rich and the poor, and me having to figure out what it is I need to do about it for myself. Like, Oak Flats, $2.99. No tips, just how it works in general. I think, like, if you were to give my channel kind of any props on anything when it comes outside of like understanding lumber and the distribution network of lumber, it would be my understanding of the monetary policy. And I believe that my studies of monetary policy are second to none. Like, I don't know why I decided that I was going to start reading as many Fed speeches as I could. But when I started breaking these things down and started looking at the information that they were delivering to the other central bankers out there, I realized that there was two communications taking place. As I tried to figure out why they were talking in two different languages, and I really thought in the beginning, I just thought it was because most people just didn't understand the Federal Reserve, so they were trying to communicate in a way that the people would understand them better, but that's not it at all. It's not even it. That is, nothing could be further from the truth, right? Absolutely nothing could be further from the truth. They definitely deliver another message to the mainstream media than they do to the other central bankers. There is two different messages being conducted there, right? One of them talks about monetary policy with inflation moderately above 2%, persistent going into the future, all that stuff, right? The other one is conduction of the inflation expectation that is being delivered out there. See, this is what's crazy about it, is that if you go and you do the research, you're going to find that in 2018 to 2019, the Federal Reserve was figuring out a way that they could have inflation run above 2% for some time, average inflation targeting, right? Not the inflation targeting like we know where they try to get to 2%, but one where they allow it to run persistently above 2% for some time. They had established plans, makeup strategy, had already moved into a position in which that they were going to deploy this when COVID hit. Supply shocks forced inflation up to the moon, and the makeup strategy that they were conducted became irrelevant. They didn't even need to do it anymore, right? Because they had inflation well above the 2% target, now making up for the fact that they were failing to achieve it over the previous 10 years. This right? Understanding of the monetary policy, nobody. Literally nobody talks about it. Right? However, it's within their own words, their speeches, and you can go and find it for yourself, or you can just, follow a bunch of the Uneducated Economist stuff where I break down the speeches and deliver them to you. Member only live streams, $1, right? $1 a month. You'll have access to all those. But when you understand that they had elevated this inflation or the elevated inflation had saved their monetary policy, because now what it was doing is it was pulling the average inflation up. The inflation had fallen below 2%. It was running consistently below it. So they decided, okay, we cannot achieve a 2% target. We've tried many times. It doesn't work. We cannot achieve a 2% target. What we need to do from this point on is switch to average inflation targeting, where over time we'll achieve a 2%. So if we run consistently under 2% for some time, we'll need to be consistently above 2% for some time, so that the long run average is 2%. Once I figured out that's what they were doing, and I figured that out pretty early in the COVID pandemic, I couldn't see it any other way. And I kept trying to tell people, if you have an elevated inflation expectation, you are saving the Fed's monetary policy, and they could not understand that. They couldn't understand it. They thought I had lost my mind and that I was just talking like this weird, nonsense. Like, people literally were saying, dude, I think you're on drugs. How could you possibly communicate this when everybody sees what's going on? Money printer go burr, prices go up. And I'm like, damn. They don't see that the makeup strategy that was deployed has become irrelevant. The Federal Reserve is then saying, hey, we're trying to combat inflation, yet they're using this inflation to make up for their past deviations from it. Here we are, moderately above 2%, very much in line with what it is that the Federal Reserve said that they wanted. Unemployment is still historically low. Right? This is to me, I just couldn't believe that they pulled it off. I was just absolutely amazed. I'm like, no way. No way. And here everybody says that they screwed up and they don't know what they're doing. And I'm like, they pulled off one of the most incredible feats I think that they could ever have possibly imagined. Yeah. I mean, I'm no fan of the Federal Reserve, but dang, man, that was pretty good. That was pretty good. I don't know how you did it, right? But you did it. If the Fed cuts, why would they? If the Fed cuts, the only reason why they would be is because inflation expectation has fallen dramatically, right? And it's lowering the neutral interest rate. If the inflation, this is what's blowing. Okay, here we go. Actually, let's look at it opposite. Great question. All right, great question. Now let's look at it opposite. The Federal Reserve will cut if inflation expectation falls, right? If inflation expectation falls dramatically, it will pull the neutral interest rate down. If the neutral interest rate begins to fall, it will make the economy restricted. Right? It will restrict the economy more because it'll widen the gap between the neutral interest rate and the Fed funds rate. They will be forced to lower they will be forced to lower the Fed funds rate to chase the neutral interest rate down. That's the reason why they would lower the neutral interest rate. Inflation expectation has to fall. Once it falls, it will pull the neutral interest rate down. The Fed will follow it down. That's what will get them to cut, right? Other than that, no, they won't cut. They won't need to, because they're not even trying to attempt to cut. They want to raise the inflation expectation, raise the neutral interest rate, and have the neutral interest rate be neutral at the Fed's funds current rate. Like, the Fed doesn't want to move. They want neutral to find them. That's why they keep pushing elevated inflation expectations with the credible threat of tariffs. This is why Trump and Powell are like best friends forever. They are like the homies of all buddies, man. I mean, think about it. Powell desperately needs inflation expectations to raise the neutral interest rate, and Trump is delivering it. Right? That's why I know it's not the two of them coercing this on their own, right? This is a game that was started a long time ago. Donald Trump says, oh man, you need inflation expectations? Here, hold my beer 1 second. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. I mean, no tariffs. I mean, tariffs. Mm-hmm. No tariffs. There's no tariffs. there's tariffs. There's no tariffs. What is it? You know? I mean, to me, it seems pretty easy, you know, that once you start recognizing it in this fashion, like even the question itself, why would the Fed cut rates? Well, the Fed would cut rates if the neutral interest rate is falling. Why would the neutral interest rate fall? Just follow it back. The neutral interest rate would fall because of a falling inflation expectation. What would cause a falling inflation expectation? Well, maybe the alleviation of tariffs, right? That might help. And that's exactly what the Swiss had to do last week. They are now at 0. The tariff is a manipulation game coming from Trump. Okay. And again, you can give it the meaning of that, and it is a manipulation game, and I do agree with it. And I'm not sure what it is that you think they're trying to manipulate, except for me. I believe that they're trying to manipulate the neutral interest rate higher. What do you think? I mean, because that's what's happening. I don't know if they were trying to do that or not, but that's what's occurring based on the credible threat of tariffs, which is making the economy less restricted, which is in some ways can be considered accommodating, which is what Trump wants. I don't know. I don't know. I agree with you, Simon. Thank you, RL. All right. Tariff, and I wasn't trying to be like I don't know, critical or anything like that. I agree with you as well. Trump is a euphemism for taxes. Yeah, again, like I don't even really look at it that way either. You know, because if you give it that meaning, then you'll probably experience that in your life. Like I look at what it is that Trump is doing as exactly what it is that I say. I believe that this is a credible threat to raise the neutral interest rate to get it ever closer to the Fed funds, get it closer to the Fed funds rate to make the economy less restricted. That is what I believe is going on. Like, because that's what's happening. Like, I mean, it's not even like me have to think about it. That's just what's occurring, right? I mean, I guess some people could look at that as like secondary, but I think that that's like deliberate. Like people could look at it and say, well, that's, that happens to be like a secondary thing that's happening because of all this other stuff. And I'm thinking, no, that was the deliberate action in order to make it occur. Right? That was the deliberate action. Raise the inflation expectation to raise the neutral interest rates. Make the economy less restricted. 107 people watching. Thank you so much for joining in on today's live stream. We're going to end it here in just a few minutes because I'm hungry and I want to go in and eat dinner. All right. Simon, how much real-time data do you think the Federal Reserve has access to? They claim to have to wait for data, but with the wealth they hold, I have a hard time believing that. I don't. I believe that they have to wait for data. I mean, think about it. Like, if I give you a sales report of how much I did last month, you're already 30 days too late. Right? If somebody calls me up and says, hey, man, how are you doing for your sales here? Are you seeing like a profound impact? Is things picking up or slowing down? And I say, slowing down, I guess. How long has it been slowing down? I don't know, a couple of weeks, I guess. Slowdown started 2 weeks ago. You're already 2 weeks late. By the time they figure it out, it's already too late. The day that you're sitting there going, why isn't nobody calling today? That's day one, right? How come nobody called again today? Day 2, right? Oh, I got a sale today. That's weird. First sale in 2 days? That doesn't seem right at all, right? See how far behind these guys are already? You're already 3 days ahead of them. This is how fast it works. So by the time the data comes out, you're already 30 days into it. And that's how the Federal Reserve is operating. That's how all the guys are doing it. Everybody. The only people who are not doing it is literally people who are working a 9-to-5 job. Or maybe possibly the business owner if they're on the premises. Right? Because even those guys are waiting until the end of the week to see how much sales that they had in their company. Like, unless they are vigilantly on it every single moment of every single day, they're not going to experience it like somebody who is forced to be there 8 hours a day, experiencing it in real time. There is no way that they can do it. Not like you. right? So understand that you have by far the most advanced real-time information when it comes to the economy. You see it in real time. You see it in right now. Right? And there's other people who, have money who will be able to see lots of things within the economy in their real time as well. They have their position in life and their meaning that they have given everything that they look at. But I know that their investments, their, yields, their returns and stuff like that, they really have to wait for us to live their lives before they get theirs. Right? All right. Yes, the tariffs threat pulled a lot of demand forward. All right. The great country provides all the constitutional benefits and the pro-business environment, and the companies then turn around and betray us. I have no problem with the state putting them in line. Okay, off. I mean, hey, I appreciate it, and I understand kind of where you're coming from. I think it's important to understand the Cantillon effect. You have to internalize Cantillon's essay on economic theory, especially 3 chapters. It's in part 2, chapters 6, 7, and 8, the increase and decrease of money to the state and the further reflections upon that topic. The essay can be purchased from the affiliate link that I have down in the description of my videos. It's an Amazon affiliate link. I get paid a little commission. Not only do I get a little commission off of the essay, but anything that you put in your cart for the next 24 hours after clicking on that affiliate link, I will also get a little commission for, so long as you purchase it in the next 30 days. So before you go shopping on Amazon, click on the affiliate link for the Cantillon essay to the economic theory. Again, you don't need to buy the essay. You can buy anything you want from Amazon. Just fill your cart up in the next 24 hours after clicking on the affiliate link and make the purchase in the next 30 days. Now, you can also go get that Cantillon essay for free at the Mises Institute. Just type in Cantillon essay on economic theory, right? You can go check it out at the Amazon affiliate link first to make sure you get the spelling right. Click on that link. And then you can go and get the essay for free at the Mises Institute, where you can download the PDF and read it at your will. Chapter 6, 7, and 8 in part 2, increase and decrease of money to the state, understanding the Cantillon effect, right? This is the reason why why the corporations leave. Understand that essay, understand those chapters, and you won't be blaming greedy corporations. You won't be saying the words betrayed or anything like that. All that stuff will vanish, and you will have new meaning for the reasons why it's occurring, so that you can position yourself more accordingly, right? Because it's not something you should blame. You can. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not here to tell you shouldn't blame them. I'm just saying that there's an underlying economic force that caused that to happen, that if you understood it, I believe that you would have less blame. Right? And again, I'm not trying to tell you how to look at it, because I'm really trying to back away from that sort of like mindset that I need to tell people how to live and be or whatever, and like I ever really have. But all I guess I'm getting at is that there's a lot of anti-corporate thought. There's a lot of like belief that they were greedy. There's a lot of belief in this system that said that they forced it or took it away or sent it away. To understand that there was an underlying economic force that caused that to happen will then give you a much better appreciation for why it occurred. All right, that's all I guess I'm getting at on that. I'm going to go in and eat, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out this whole time. We're almost 2 hours into this live stream with 167 people watching and 112 likes. Thank you so much for hitting that like button. Again, I really appreciate everybody coming to the channel, supporting the channel, the super chats, the thumbs up, all the sharing of the videos. That's probably one of the easiest ways that you can help support the Uneducated Economist, is by sharing the video. When the YouTube algorithm recognizes it, it tries to share it even more. What else can I say? We'll keep diving in. We'll keep breaking this stuff down. I want, if nothing else, I want the viewers of this channel to be able to understand the economy and look at some of the decisions that they are making for themselves with confidence. And that's really the bottom line here. This is what I'm trying to get at. There's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of ways that information is delivered that can be quite entertaining. And sometimes it is fear-mongering. It's driving, it's driving that that thing in you that kind of lures you in. This is probably where a lot of times that I even find myself like falling into that. I want to make more money on YouTube, so I start putting up fear-mongering titles, and actually start getting a lot more animated in there to try and bring in some more attention or something to the videos. I know that's not the heart of this channel. The heart of this channel is to deliver the message that helps you the best to understand what it is that's taking place, and I really truly believe that's what I'm trying to do, right? If I start to deviate away from that, I know you guys will recognize it, and I know you recognize why I'm doing it. But when it comes to the heart of this channel and what it is that I'm trying to do here, this is it. I want to be able to deliver a message so that you can look at it and say, yes, I can now look at the decisions that I'm making with more confidence, understanding what it is that's taking place out there. All right, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for being here. Uneducated Economist, you let me know.